Hi guys, and welcome to my March wrap up and my April TBR. Unfortunately, my March reading left quite a lot to be desired. I only read 2 books out of the mountain that I'd picked to read. It was my own fault. If I hadn't have purchased so many books during the month, I wouldn't have been so distracted. And I was quite distracted. I wanted to read it all. I wanted to read it all at once, and I couldn't read any of it. So to remedy that in April, I'm not going to purchase any books. Or at least try to. I have some books pre-ordered. I'm pretty sure none of them come out in April, but if they do, you know, it's pre-ordered. Not much I can do about that one. But the 2 books I did manage to read, first of all, was Firelight by Kristen Callahan, and this was an urban fantasy romance set in Victorian London. I have reviewed this on my blog. I will link the blog in the info box for you, but I did give this 3 stars on Goodreads. I found it quite enjoyable. I liked the romance element in it, and because it was a romance, it was mostly focused on the romance element. I kind of would have liked the fantasy element to have been explored a bit more. Particularly, our main character has a quirk, a mystical element, which is never really explained. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, so I'm not going to mention it, but I will mention it in the review, so you can go and check that out if you want to know. The other book that I read was The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury, and this is a young adult fantasy about this girl who can kill with a single touch, and she is the kingdom's executioner, and she is kind of brought into the castle to be the bride of the prince. Again, I have a review of this on the blog, so I will just briefly explain the whole Sin Eater thing. The Sin Eater is a person who will come to your wake and they cover your coffin in food, and each piece of food will represent a sin. Each food represents a sin, and the Sin Eater must consume all the sins or your soul will forever walk the earth lost. And our main character, Twyla, I wish they would have picked some stupid names, but Twyla was the Sin Eater's daughter, and she was destined to become the next Sin Eater when she was taken by the Queen to become the Dawnin Embodied, which is the daughter of the 2 gods they worship, and it's been prophesied that in times of great hardship that Dawnin will come to Earth, and they believe that she was Dawnin Embodied. And that's how she came to be in the castle, and how she came to be marrying the prince. And then things kinda happen. I really liked it because I've read a lot of kind of dystopian kind of fantasy-ness. It was a little bit predictable and a little bit I don't know. I liked it. I really liked it. It was a little bit predictable, but I liked it. I will read the next book in the series. I would recommend it, especially if you're just getting into fantasy. It's a great place to start. It's really kind of light-hearted, and I can't remember. I think I gave this 4 stars. I will just check. Is that the power on button? Yeah, I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. I have my computer on, but I have the screen off because it kicks out one heck of heat, and I'm sitting here like sweating like crazy. So, Sin Eater's Daughter, I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Can't wait for the next book to come out and see how the story continues. So yeah. Now on to books I'd like to read in April, and according to my Goodreads challenge, I'm 23 books behind schedule. So we need to rectify that one. And to give myself a little kickstart, I picked out really short books, and a lot of them, in fact, they're all classics, so, or, you know, books of literary merit, whichever way you want to say it. But I have 7 of them here. We have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Because of the way the class is divided up in school, I didn't end up in the class that studied this. I studied, what did I study? Roddy Doyle, Paddy Clark, ha ha ha. It was shit. Just saying. I've heard Roddy Doyle is an amazing Irish literary author, but Paddy Clark, ha ha ha, was shit. So, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Next we have Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I read this a long time ago. I think I read this when I was like 18, and I'd like to reread it, and it's I'm sure it's about a woman who goes to New York as an intern, and it just kind of follows her little depressed existence, and it sounds really doom and gloom, but it's really interesting and I really just want to reread it. So that's that one. Then we have The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This has been on my to be read list for at least 10 years. It's about a man who I believe somehow sells his soul, and he remains forever youthful, but a portrait of himself forever grows old and aging, from what I can remember. But I really want to read that. Totally. And then we have The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Possibly one of my most favourite science fiction movies ever. The original one, not the remake. The remake one, crap. But really want to read this. It's really short. It's less than 100 pages. So I remember I had this on my TBR somewhere before Christmas time, and I never really got around to reading it, so I'm looking forward to getting around to it now. Then we have The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I bought this book at least 3 years ago, and I've been meaning to read it ever since, and either I can't find it or I'm just not in the mood to, and now I have it in my hands and I really want to read it, so I'm gonna. We have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Again, this is a really short one. It's just over 100 pages, and I've been told that it's the perfect place to start with Virginia Woolf. Ron Litt, that's who I heard about this from, so I'm kind of really looking forward to it. I read a part of A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I liked her writing style. That was I believe it was an essay that was made from a talk she gave, but that say that again. But A Room of One's Own is definitely worth a read if you want to, you know, if you're into feminist literature, that is worth it. So, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and lastly this little segment is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. Again, I heard about this from Ron Litt, and I'm currently reading this. I'm on chapter 3, and wow. Little boy encouraged to pull little birds apart for fun. Psycho. Yeah. But really liking the writing style. It's very similar to Emily Bronte, well, not Emily Bronte, the other one, Charlotte Bronte. It's very similar to Charlotte Bronte. Emily Bronte is a very somber tone when she writes, whereas the other two sisters are very airy and light-hearted and easier to read. I tried to read Wuthering Heights several times, and it is bordering on a chore because the language is just so dark. But Agnes Grey, loving. These next two are books I've owned for a really long time, one of which Naomi from my work has been badgering me to read for the last year, and that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and I've had this book since publication, I think. Let me see, when did it, quite possibly 2007. I think I probably bought this in like 2007, 2008. I've had this for a freaking long time and just never really got around to reading it. I picked it up in a Waterston's 3 for 2 deal, and this printing of it is huge, but I love the end papers. It's so pretty. But yeah, I think the only reason I bought it is because it was narrated by Death. But I really need to get around to reading it. I'm probably the only person who hasn't read this. I need to read it. And then we have some Stephen King, The Dark Half. And this is kind of based on his own experience of having a pseudonym and how it kind of affects your psyche as an author, I guess. And it has this massive picture of Stephen himself when he was ruggedly handsome. Yes, I think Stephen King is ruggedly handsome. Don't shoot me. But yeah, despite how big it looks, it's only like just over 400 pages, and it's Stephen King, so it'll be really fast paced and I will fly through it. And I haven't read a Stephen King book in like 3 years. Like seriously, he's like at one point was my favorite author. He was like he's an auto-buy author for me. I will just buy anything and read anything this man writes. So yeah, need to get me some Stephen King. Now this next stack of books are all optional extras on top of what I've chosen, just in case I'm feeling a bit slumpy and I need something to perk me up a bit and something fun and exciting. They're all fantasy, some of it's young adult, one of which, the one that's not young adult is part of a series that I've already started and I'm already partway through the book, and that is Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. I'm determined to read all of the A Song of Ice and Fire books that are currently published this year. That is my goal, and even if it does take me all year, I'm determined to read all the currently published ones. Ooh, I love that sound. But yeah, so Clash of Kings when I have the time. We have the first two books in the Fallen Kingdoms series by Morgan Rhodes. That is Fallen Kingdoms and Rebel Spring. And these are relatively short books. They're both, you know, just under 400 pages and they have really big margins. So they will probably go really fast. And then we also have the first three books in the Throne of Glass series. We have Throne of Glass, Assassin's Blade and Crown of Midnight. I've already read Throne of Glass, but I wanted to reread it. I read it last July, I think, and I really enjoyed it, but I think there was bits that I was kind of missing, so yeah, gonna reread it. And then we have, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to read the Assassin's Blade after Throne of Glass, or you can read it before maybe, because this is like a prequel and it's got all the short stories that give sort of a background history to Selena and how she became the way she is, and give you probably like an extra added background to the world that they live in. And then, you know, Crown of Midnight, the one everyone raves about, so yeah, I'll be excited to get onto those. So those are all the books that I would like to read in April. If I don't get to them all, it's fine, but if I can manage more than 2 of them, that would be awesome. I know it's very literature heavy, but that's okay. It will help me expand my mind, expand my vocabulary, help me understand more of the world around me, all the great things that literature is meant to do, as well as just help me understand. It just helps you become a better reader. It's like what someone said, it's like weightlifting. If you lift something heavier than what you can lift, you become stronger. If you can read something harder than what you would normally read, you become a better reader. Unfortunately, with some of these things, I will be sitting there with the book in one hand and a dictionary in the other because they use some really archaic language. As always, a link to the Goodreads will be in the info box along with a link to the blog, so you can always keep up with me there. Or, you know, there's like Twitter and Instagram and all that fun jazz down there as well. Not that I really use it all that much, but hey, you might be able to encourage me, you never know. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.